Hello there, whether you're currently building up a rig now or planning on doing so in the future, there are both positive and negative trade-offs for going to a build such as this. And in today's video, I'm going to be going over my experiences with my overland rig and if this style is right for you. Virtually all truck builds of this style all utilize what's called an overland rack, which is going to be this thing right here. And because of that, in today's video, I'm only going to be focusing on the back half of my truck where mine sits. For those who are unsure of what exactly overlanding is, the quickest way to explain it is this. An overland trail is any lengthy off-road route that typically goes through wilderness. These can be a simple out and back like Coyote Flat Loop here in Bishop, or a point-to-point such as the 45-mile Mazurka Peak Trail. The goal of an overland build is to essentially pack as many amenities as you can onto your truck. Tying into that, I'm running a 2010 short bed Toyota Tacoma featuring a ikamper Skycamp mini rooftop tent, a 6-foot pull-out kitchen, lockable storage, and outboard bike mounts, all of which is tied together by the Max Modular Overland Rack System, which I'm not sponsored by, FYI. Other smaller things include gas, water, and a little too much recovery gear for what I actually do. Toolbox, CO2 tank, fire extinguisher, and way too many tow ropes. It's a lot of weight. My favorite thing about the overland style is the iconic off-road look. And the number of customizations you can do with your equipment placement is limitless, giving every single overland build its own unique look. Everything about this truck was a learning experience. When I first got this, it was completely stock, but I had a vision for where I wanted it to be, and 2 years later after continuous modding, here we are with its final form. I wanted a hard tonneau cover to assist with theft prevention, but I had to make sure it was compatible with the overland rack, so I emailed the manufacturer and got the green light. Next, upon installation of this ikamper, I found that the stock mounting hardware wasn't compatible with this overland rack. $90 later in adapters, here we are. As I continued doing increasingly longer trips, I realized that storage room was a major problem. And to try to counteract this, I started making some changes, starting off by replacing the stock rail with a storage box. I made room on the roof rack to mount another storage container. I ended up mounting this cargo net to the back of the rack system here and installed cargo E-tracks to give me a whole lot of modular mounting points for additional bungee cords and now more storage. Obviously, every rig is different depending on the make, model, and choice of your equipment. But all I'm emphasizing is that there's a lot of customization that can be done to these, and a lot of research should be done beforehand or else you get unexpected results like I did. Let's ramp this up and get to the direct points, pros and cons. Pros for this style include the iconic off-road look, market saturation, which means there's plenty of different brands and companies to choose for when buying your equipment, high level of customization. You can move all these different pieces around as much as you want, meaning that every single rig is unique to each person. And lastly, camping versatility. You can pretty much just drive wherever you want, throw down some leveling blocks, and there's camp for the night. Overall, these are some really good pros. I mean, I felt like this build was me assembling a Lego set without the instructions. I just kept moving things around until it looked right. Moving on to the con list, it's fairly expansive, but all of which are based off of my personal experiences when out camping. And the first of which is going to be involving weather and rooftop tents. If you are going into this style of build, it's pretty much guaranteed that you will be getting a rooftop tent. I camp in windy conditions a lot, and sometimes rainy. And having to open, close, and load this when either of those conditions are occurring is very difficult. Things to consider is that you cannot keep this closed when there's any type of moisture inside, whether it be from high amounts of condensation or just rainy weather. And if you're doing an overland trip where you're continuously driving, you're not going to have any time to let this thing sit open and dry out. If you leave it closed, it will mold and will ruin your investment. Also, twice when using my larger tepui tent, unexpected windstorms overnight actually began to lift up this section here, forcing me to close the tent and sleep in the cab. What I'm trying to get at though is that rooftop tents are nice. You get a nice flat comfy mattress to sleep off of, you have an elevated sleeping position, and you can camp anywhere you want, but it still has its trade-offs that you should consider. The next part is storage. A popular way of building these up now has been to not have a tonneau and to have a higher up rack system than mine. The reason I went with this style is that, one, I wanted the tonneau for theft protection, And 2, I got the short rack because I don't want this giant windsail sticking a foot above the cab. I'm not a fan of the look, and I'm still thinking of aerodynamics and gas mileage. The issue this has created for me though is that these are so intertwined with locking bolts, cables, and the sheer weight. It is basically a permanent part of my truck now, and don't ask me to move furniture because I don't have room for it. If it doesn't fit in the cab, that's it, I can't move it. If this stuff wasn't here, I would just have everything in the back of the truck with a cargo net going over the top. Next up is price. Obviously, these can range dramatically depending on what you go with, but if we're looking at kind of a median price range for most of these big ticket items, you're looking at around $1,800 for a tent, $500 for a rack, $700 for a tonneau, and let's say about $300 for communication, mounting hardware, and just other accessories. So that does add up to a decent amount, and shipping costs absolutely killed me. Good stuff. Next up is maintenance. These racks have a dynamic and static load limit, which is how much weight is recommended to be on top of these rack systems. That's because when you're on an off-road trail moving the truck a lot left to right, you're swinging a decent amount of weight all over the place, and that puts a lot of stress on mounting hardware and all the mounting surfaces. Luckily for me, I have not had any major trail failures yet. I have found that a lot of these nylock nuts somehow actually back out and make this entire system loose. Bed stiffeners are also a thing. It's basically an L bracket that stiffens this side of the truck bed. I personally don't use them because this is a lightweight tent and it's a low mounting rack system, but anyone that uses something heavy or higher up probably is recommended, or else you risk this kind of bending outwards. Lastly is going to be gas mileage. The stock Tacoma has a gas mileage of 18.5. Currently, I'm around 11 to 12, which is absolutely terrible for long distance trips. And it's mostly going to be because of the sheer amount of weight that this rack system is putting onto the back end of the truck. Between the tonneau, rack, tent, kitchen, and everything else, I'm looking at roughly 800 pounds of weight always on the rear end of the truck. And that puts a lot of stress on the driveline, really sucks down the gas mileage, really is just hurting me financially. I know tires can be a part of it, but when you have 800 pounds, that's probably doing a lot to your performance. So now that I've stated my case and made it sound like I hate my truck, let me voice some alternatives that might work out for you. The first is keep it simple. One alternative is just getting a tent that goes in the back of the truck. My buddy in his Tundra mobs around on overland trails with a stock bed. He just loads all of his equipment up into the truck bed, and when it's time to camp, everything goes onto the ground and a tent goes into the back of the truck. And mix that up with some cheap foam padding and you got a pretty decent mattress. The other option is something I've been highly considering, which is a camper shell build. I'm going to sample Mav here because I'm a fan of his build, which is based off of a Ford F-150, I believe. He uses a raised foundation with storage and a kitchen underneath. And on top is his bedding and plenty of storage. Weather isn't really an issue and there's plenty of space to utilize. I'm seriously considering doing a similar build like that, either with a long bed Tacoma or a Tundra in the future. But I'm stuck with this for now. So in conclusion, what do we have? We have a clean looking rig that is very functional for the purposes that I built it. Limitations though include weather affecting the usability of the rooftop tent and the layered tonneau cover and rack system affecting overall storage capacity. The sheer price of getting it to this point can totally counteract the benefits gained, leading to just a dissatisfied experience. I really enjoy how my truck currently looks and handles, but there were just some things that I wish I had the forethought to think about moving into this. That's going to wrap it up for today. If you are interested in anything you've seen in this video, whether it be equipment, camera photography, all that good stuff, feel free to check the Amazon list in the description below. I have multiple lists detailing basically every piece of equipment I use. So with that, hopefully this video can be a learning experience for you guys. And till next time, see you on the trails.